The Unrivaled League's groundbreaking debut has turned into a nightmare, with venues struggling to fill even 200 seats out of 850. This women's basketball league is facing a major crisis, but there's one person who could change everything: Caitlin Clark. The question is, did they miss their shot? Unrivaled has created quite the buzz leading up to their tip-off games this Friday. But can the league live up to the hype, and what does this mean for the WNBA? Let's rewind to the start. The Unrivaled League burst onto the scene with massive promises, a revolutionary 3x3 basketball format backed by WNBA superstars like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. On paper, it looked perfect. Fast-paced games, big names, and a fresh take on women's basketball. Well, apparently, quite a lot. When the first game tipped off, the reality hit harder than a blocked shot. Picture this, a venue so small you could probably fit it in your local high school gym. We're talking about an 850-seat capacity. Now, that might work if people were fighting for tickets, but they weren't. Instead of packed stands, we got games with around 200 people showing up. That's not a typo. 200 people. You could hear every bounce of the ball, every call from the players, every squeak of shoes against the court. It felt more like a practice session than a professional league game. Friendly 2 a.m. right now, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, some of this stuff. The atmosphere was so quiet, you could probably hear someone unwrapping their candy bar 3 rows back. For a league that promised excitement and innovation, this wasn't exactly the kind of attention they were hoping for. Social media didn't miss a beat either. Comments started rolling in faster than a fast break, and they weren't exactly singing praises. One fan wrote, "I've seen more people at my nephew's middle school games." Ouch. Another chimed in, "The echo in this arena is louder than the crowd." Double ouch. But here's the thing. These weren't just trolls being trolls. These were genuine basketball fans who wanted to see the league succeed. The league's promotional material painted a picture of revolutionary basketball. They talked about changing the game, bringing a new energy to women's basketball during the WNBA offseason. The concept was solid. Give fans their basketball fix year-round while providing players with another platform to showcase their skills. Plus, the 3x3 format, that's pure gold for highlighting individual talent. But something wasn't clicking. The games themselves were good. Actually, they were really good. When you've got players like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier on the court, you're guaranteed quality basketball. The 3x3 format meant more space for creativity, more opportunities for one-on-one plays, and a faster pace that should have had fans on the edge of their seats. Should have being the key word here. Instead, what we got was great basketball being played in what felt like a vacuum. The empty seats weren't just an eyesore for the in-person experience. They affected the broadcast too. TV cameras had to work overtime to avoid showing the vacant sections, and even then, the lack of crowd noise made it feel like watching practice footage. The league tried to spin it. They talked about intimate atmosphere and being close to the action. And sure, if you were one of the 200 people there, you probably had a great view. But professional sports isn't just about seeing the game. It's about feeling it. It's about the energy that comes from a crowd holding its breath during a crucial free throw. The roar that follows a massive three-pointer. The collective groan when a sure shot rims out. None of that was happening here. And it wasn't because the players weren't delivering. They were putting on a show. Stewart was doing Stewart things, making impossible shots look routine. Collier was demonstrating why she's one of the most versatile players in the game. The talent was undeniable. But talent alone doesn't fill seats. Star power does, and that's where Caitlin Clark comes in. While the Unrivaled League was struggling with its attendance issues, Clark was busy making history elsewhere. This wasn't just any player we're talking about. When Clark steps on a court, she doesn't just play basketball. She puts on a show that people can't look away from. The league knew this. They weren't blind to Clark's drawing power. Reports surfaced that they offered her over $1 million to join. That's not just a contract. That's a statement. They were essentially saying, We know what you bring to the table, and we're willing to pay premium for it. But Clark said no. She chose to focus on her training instead. It was her right, absolutely. Athletes have to make decisions based on what's best for their careers, and nobody can fault her for that. But for the league, that decision hit harder than any crossover. You see, Clark isn't just a basketball player. She's a phenomenon. When she plays, something magical happens. Regular season college games turn into must-see events. Local gyms transform into packed arenas. People who've never watched a basketball game in their lives suddenly become invested in three-point percentages and assist ratios. Think about what that could have meant for the Unrivaled League. Those 200-person crowds. With Clark on the court, they could have been 2,000. Those quiet arenas, they could have been buzzing with energy. The social media comments mocking the empty seats. They could have been trending hashtags about Clark's latest impossible shot. The league's format would have been perfect for Clark's style too. 3-on-3 basketball means more space to operate, more opportunities for those signature long-range shots she's famous for. Each player gets more touches, more chances to create highlights. It could have been a match made in basketball heaven. Instead, the league had to watch from the sidelines as Clark continued to break records and make headlines elsewhere. Every packed arena she played in, every viral moment she created, every new viewership record she set, they all served as reminders of what could have been. The contrast became even more stark as the season progressed. While Clark was drawing crowds that would make NBA teams jealous, the Unrivaled League was still struggling to fill its modest venues. The basketball was good, but good basketball alone wasn't enough to compete in today's entertainment landscape. That's the reality of modern sports. It's not just about the game anymore. It's about the story, the spectacle, the stars. And right now, there's no bigger star in women's basketball than Caitlin Clark. She's not just a player. She's a cultural moment. The numbers tell the story. When Clark plays, viewership skyrockets. We're not talking about small increases either. We're talking about records being shattered, then shattered again. Regular season games drawing audiences that rival professional playoffs. Social media engagement that would make influencers envious. And it's not just about quantity, it's about who's watching. Clark has this incredible ability to draw in casual fans, people who might not otherwise watch basketball. She makes the game accessible, exciting, must-see TV. That's exactly what a new league needs. The Unrivaled League's current situation is particularly frustrating because they're doing so many things right. The 3x3 format is innovative. The pace is exciting. The talent level is high. They've got Olympic medalists, WNBA champions, and some of the most skilled players in the world. But in today's crowded sports landscape, being good isn't good enough. You need something more. You need that spark that turns a game into an event. That's what Clark brings to the table, and that's what the Unrivaled League is missing. Some might argue it's unfair to pin all of the league's struggles on Clark's absence. They're right. The challenges go beyond one player. There are questions about venue selection, marketing strategy, and overall presentation. But here's the thing. Star power has a way of making other problems seem smaller. Would people be talking about the small venues if they were packed to the rafters? Would the marketing strategy matter as much if clips of Clark's impossible shots were going viral every night? Would the presentation be such an issue if the energy in the building was electric? These aren't just hypothetical questions. They're the kind of questions that keep league executives up at night. Because they know, everyone knows, that they missed out on something special. The $1 million offer to Clark wasn't just about basketball talent. It was about transformation, about turning a good idea into a cultural moment. The irony is, the league isn't bad. The basketball is solid. The players are talented. The format is innovative. But in sports, sometimes good isn't good enough. You need that extra something, that star quality that makes people stop scrolling through their phones and pay attention. And right now, nobody commands attention quite like Caitlin Clark. When we look at the actual gameplay in the Unrivaled League, there's a lot to love. The 3x3 format creates this fast-paced, high-energy style that should be perfect for today's attention spans. Players can't hide or take plays off. Everyone has to be involved. Everyone has to contribute. It's basketball stripped down to its most exciting elements. Take someone like Breanna Stewart, In the WNBA, she's already a force of nature, but in this 3x3 format, she's got more space to work with, more opportunities to showcase her versatility. Same goes for Nafisa Collier, who's out there making defenders look like they're playing in slow motion. The talent is undeniable. But then the camera pans to the crowd, or rather the lack of one, and the energy just deflates. It's like watching a Broadway show with only the first 2 rows filled. The performance might be spectacular, but without that crowd energy, something crucial is missing. The league's timing makes this especially painful. Women's basketball is having a moment right now. College games are drawing record viewership. The WNBA is seeing increased interest. There's this growing appetite for women's sports that should make this the perfect time to launch something new and exciting. And let's talk about that $1 million offer to Clark for a second. That wasn't just about getting a good player. It was about making a statement. The league was essentially saying, we're serious about this. We're willing to invest in star power. But when Clark said no, they didn't seem to have a plan B. That's where things get interesting. Because while Clark's absence is definitely felt, it also raises some questions about the league's overall strategy. Did they put too many eggs in one basket? Should they have worked harder to create buzz around the stars they did have? Could they have done more to make their venues feel full, even with smaller crowds? The social media response has been particularly brutal. Fans aren't just commenting on the empty seats, they're creating memes about it. One viral post showed a split screen. One side had Clark playing in front of a packed arena. The other showed an unrivaled league game with its scattered crowd. The caption? Same sport, different universe. But here's where things get really interesting. Despite all these challenges, the players haven't given up. They're still out there giving it their all, still creating highlights worthy of prime time. The problem is, not enough people are seeing them. It's like they're performing basketball magic tricks, but half the audience left during intermission. Take a recent game between the Lunar Owls and the Mist. The level of play was incredible. You had Olympic-caliber athletes going head-to-head in this intimate setting. The game went down to the wire, had amazing plays, dramatic moments, everything you'd want in a sporting event. But the crowd noise? You could barely tell when something exciting happened. That's not just disappointing for the fans who are there, it's disappointing for the players too. Athletes feed off crowd energy. When someone makes an amazing play, they want to hear that roar. They want to feel the building shake. Instead, they're getting polite applause that sounds more like a golf clap. Speaking of the players, let's talk about their perspective for a minute. Many of them joined this league because they saw the potential. During the WNBA offseason, players often have to go overseas to keep playing and earning. The Unrivaled League was supposed to offer an alternative. Stay home, play in an innovative format, help grow the game in the U.S. That's a compelling pitch. And these players, they're not just going through the motions. They're diving for loose balls, fighting for rebounds, playing with the kind of intensity you'd expect in a championship game. But without Clark's star power drawing in the casual fans, it feels like they're performing for an empty theater. The league's marketing team has tried to adapt. They've highlighted the intimate atmosphere, pushed the you can hear every play angle, emphasized the unique aspects of the 3x3 format. But let's be real, when you're promoting professional sports, you can hear a pin drop isn't exactly the selling point you want to lead with. What makes this situation even more frustrating is that the league actually has some unique advantages. The shorter games mean fans don't have to commit to a full 2-hour basketball game. The 3x3 format is more accessible for casual viewers, fewer players to keep track of, more action, less downtime. In theory, this should be perfect for building a new audience, but theory and reality are different beasts. In reality, sports leagues need momentum. They need buzz. They need those viral moments that make people think, I need to see this in person. That's what Clark brings to the table, and that's what the Unrivaled League is missing. Let's look at some specific examples. When Clark plays a college game, social media lights up. Every deep three-pointer becomes a highlight. Every no-look pass gets shared and reshared. People who don't even follow basketball start talking about that Clark girl who shoots from half court. Compare that to the Unrivaled League's social media presence. Despite having some of the best players in the world, Despite the exciting format, despite everything they're doing right, they're struggling to create that same kind of buzz. The highlights are there, but they're not spreading. The stories are there, but they're not catching fire. This isn't just about social media clout, it's about building a sustainable league. In today's sports landscape, attention is currency. You need people talking about your product. You need those viral moments. You need stars who can transcend the sport and draw in casual fans. The league officials aren't blind to this. Reports suggest they're still interested in Clark, still hoping they might be able to bring her in at some point. But timing matters in sports, and first impressions matter even more. The question isn't just whether they can eventually get Clark, it's whether they can recover from this lukewarm launch. Some basketball purists might argue that the focus should be on the game itself, not the star power. And they're not entirely wrong. The quality of play should matter most. But the reality is, you need both. You need the high-level basketball to keep fans coming back, but you need the star power to get them in the door in the first place. The Unrivaled League story isn't over, but they're learning a tough lesson about star power in sports.